Hello friends and welcome back. In this section you are going to look all about error handling as we are doing things expecting a happy path only without thinking about what can go wrong. To make your API robust, you have to handle all the errors and the exceptions that may occur and avoid crashing the entire application over errors and exceptions that are unhandled. We will see different kind of error responses, exceptions, as well as their descriptions and status codes. In order to test all about error handling, we are going to create a new controller to help us out. And inside your API project, this is where we are going to do this. And before we do anything else, I'm going to close everything here so as to have a clean workspace. Before we create a new controller, as we're going to have a second controller, maybe we'll be sharing the same behavior like these loads and this API controller, as well as driving from the controller base. And I'm going to create what I can call a base API controller that can help us, and we will be having to derive from it instead of writing this over and over. And I'm going to go into the controller and I'm going to say new C#, and I'm going to say API controller, and I'm going to call this as base API controller, like this one. And in this case it will come like this one, and it will be inheriting from this controller base. And what we're going to do, I'm going to make a bit of refactoring. I'm going to remove this here from here. I'm going to remove everything from here, and instead of driving from a controller base, I'm going to drive from base API controller. After I'm done with this, you can see that it's now going to be inheriting from the base API controller. To test if we didn't break our application by doing that, you can go ahead and restart this to see if it's working normally. So I'm going to go into the API project and I'm going to say .NET watch LAN, and I'm going to go ahead and open the Postman, and I'm going to try to send the request here to get the list of the products. And we're going to test if it didn't break our application before continuing with anything. I'm going to go ahead and send this request, and you can see that we are safe for now. And whenever we do this for the single product, I think you're going to get the success too. And that will indicate that the changes that we made to our application didn't break our application. All right, so I'm going to minimize this Postman, and I'm going to stop this server, and we're going to add the controller that will help us to test the error. So I'm going to say new class, and I'm going to call this as testing controller. Okay, and after creating this testing controller, of course we need to derive from the base API controller. And okay, here we go. In here I'm going to add the endpoints that we will be hitting where we want to test different kind of errors that we are going to experience. For example, there will be the one for not found, there will be the one for handling the exception for example, internal server error. There will be the one for the null reference error, and there will be other for a bad request. So let's go ahead and create those ones. This will be the get request, and we can apply the same where we are going to create the data, and you will see that in the coming videos. But for now, we are going to start by using the gates. So I'm going to first, again, as we're going to be accessing the database, I'm going to bring the database context in here. So I'm going to use the quick fix. I'm going to create this constructor, and I'm going to inject now the application DB context in here. So I'm going to say application DB context, and I'm going to call this as context, and I'm going to initialize the field from parameter. And in this case, I think I need to bring in something. I'm going to bring this infrastructure, and I'm going now to initialize the field from this parameter, and I'm going to initialize the field from parameter. And again, this thing, I'm going to remove it. Okay, and after bringing these DB context in here, we are going to add the endpoints, and as I told you, we will be using the gate. So I'm going to say HTTP gate, and here it is, and I'm going to give this a root, and I'm going to call this as not found inside the quotation, like this one, and I'm going to say public action result, and you don't need to make this as asynchronous, as we are going to use this for testing only. I'm going to call this as get not found, And inside here, I'm going to, for example, say return, and I'm going to say okay, and then I'm going to do like this one, and I'm going to copy these 3 times so as to save a little bit of typing like this one, and we're going to change accordingly. And after getting this as not found, you can call this as server error, for example, server error, and in this case I'm going to call this as get server error like this one, and this one is going to be called get bad request, and here again I'm going to call this as get bad request like this. And lastly, we need to also call this bad request, and here we will be testing for example, if we're going to add the ID, and again I'm going to call this get bad request, and I'm going to add the validation, as we're going to be passing instead of passing these here, you need to provide this as int ID. And instead of providing this as an integer, we're going to provide a string, and you will see now the result that is going to blink. And in order to test the not found, we can go ahead and try to access the product that doesn't exist in our database. For example, I'm going to say var data is equal to context, and I'm going to say product, and I can go ahead and say, for example, find, and I'm going to say, for example, 54, and we know that we don't have any product with this ID of 54, and we expect to see the not found, as we are going to get this as now. So I'm going to say if now the data is equal to nar, we're going to return the not found, return not found, here it is, and here we go. All right, so I'm going to bring this down. Cool. And again, you're going to use this same approach, and in order to get the exception, you're going to try to perform any action to something that doesn't exist. For example, I can use this as a var data, and I can go ahead and say, for example, var data to return, and I can try to attempt any operation to this non-existing data. For example, I can say to string, and this will bring the exception, as you know that we don't have a product with this ID. And again, on the bad request, we are going to return the bad request. So I'm going to say return, and I'm going to say bad request like this one. And lastly, we will leave this as it is. And after adding all of these errors, we're going to go into the postman, and there will be the requests that I prepared for testing, and we are going to be sending them to see what we are going to get. So I'm going to go into the postman, and I'm going to go to the section of this error handling, and we're going to test from here. And again, don't forget to restart the server so as to populate the changes. So I'm going to say .NET watch run. All right, so let me go back into the postman, and in this case I'm going to test this for the not found. And when you go ahead and send the request in here, you can see that we are getting this not found, as there is no product with that ID that we set. And again, whenever we try to get the null reference error, we get now the exception, and we get the error code of 500 for the internal server error. So whenever I go ahead and click send, and you can see that we are getting now this exception, as we are going to we can't attempt to do any operation to the null object, and you can see that we're getting this 500 as internal server error. And you can go ahead to this 400 error, and whenever we go ahead and send the request, and here we need to change a little bit of this it's called get bad requests, and I'm going to paste it here so as to populate the loot, and I'm going to click send, and you can see that we're getting this bad request. And again, you're going to test for example, for this validation error. For example, we're going to see that if we try to pass the string to the parameter, for example, let's wait, whenever we click send, you can see that we're getting now this, that if the value 5 is not varied. And lastly, we can test for the endpoint that doesn't exist, and you see what will be brought here. And I'm going to do this as an exist. Whenever I click on send, you can see that we're getting this 404 not found, and we didn't get any response inside this body. And you can see that if this 404 error is totally different from the one that we get for the not found product. And as you have seen, we're trying to get different kind of errors, and we were getting like less information about the errors. And we need to get the consistent information about the errors that happened so as to be able to facilitate our client to know exactly what's going on whenever they make the errors, and they can get much of information regarding the errors so as to be able to distinguish what happened. And we're going to continue to improve these error handling stuffs as we're going to be adding more and more, and we'll see all of that in the next videos. I'm going to stop this video for here. Thanks for watching, and I hope you find this very interesting. Let me know if you have any problem. Write it into the comment down below, and don't forget to leave the like. So stay cool and cheers.